Around 10 years ago, I was driving home from a funeral when something really strange happened. Now, I don't particularly believe in the supernatural, and maybe it was just emotions from the funeral playing tricks on me. I'll tell the story and see what you think. I'm not sure if it had been a slow season for burials, but the news of my stepfather passing and the actual burial all happened within the space of a week. It wouldn't happen now, but it wasn't unheard of then. Death always brings up a lot of memories and triggers emotions, some of them which had been buried. Pardon the pun. I had done my duty and attended, mainly for my mother and just to show face. She didn't know. I never told her about any of the incidents. It had been a horrible day. The rain pelted down and the thunder and lightning crashed about. It was all quite poetic, really. I stayed for as long as seemed appropriate, and then began the long drive back to London. They had lived in Norfolk, and I had refused to stay over. I couldn't stand the thought of spending the night in that house, even with him gone. As I was driving, feeling a mixture of grief for my mother, and relief and even joy that the wicked old git was finally gone, something ran out into the road right in front of me. As it was still raining, I had been watching my speed, thank God. Otherwise, I would have likely been the next funeral. Standing in the road, right in front of the car, just staring at me, was a giant black dog. When I say giant, I don't even mean like a Great Dane. I mean like a bloody Cerberus. And the pure size of this thing wasn't even the worst of it. It had glowing red eyes, and accompanied by a terrible smell, like sulfur. And I suddenly had the oddest feeling, even though there was some sort of apparition in front of me that looked like it had come straight from hell. I wasn't afraid. This will sound most unusual, I know, but I could almost feel it delivering a message. And what it seemed to be suggesting was that this beast hadn't come for me, but to do something for me, and then it was gone. I drove back to London in the state that I was in, and once I'd gotten into my flat, despite it being late, and the fact that I was exhausted, I decided to search giant black dogs. The first thing I found out about was hellhounds, and although it seemed impossible, it described exactly what I'd seen, down to every little detail. I looked a little deeper, searching hellhounds in Norfolk, which was where I came from across the legend of the Black Shuck. A large black dog, believed by some to be a hellhound, who is often seen before a death or believed to act as a messenger from hell. I barely slept that night, and was finally dozing when my phone beat. A text from my mother, saying she couldn't believe it, but it looked like my stepdad's grave had been disturbed in the night, that there were all things dog paw prints in the earth, and I knew that Black Shuck had to collect his soul and deliver him to hell for all the things he did to me, and making me believe for years that it was my fault, that I couldn't tell, or my mom would be the one who got into trouble. I never believed in the supernatural, but I have always known evil existed, and I truly believe that day I saw the hellhound who would take him where he would finally be given the punishment he deserved, for all eternity. This is a quick but weird little story. One day, I was walking back from doing some shopping and needed to cross the river. As I'm approaching one of the bridges, I see something in there. I look a little more closely, and yep, there it is. A crocodile. It only popped up to the surface for a few seconds, but I honestly cannot think of a single other thing that it could have been, due to the size, and the fact, well, crocodiles look like crocodiles. I just stared at it from the water for a few minutes after, but I did not see it again, or even any more movement. The river is dirty, so it is likely that it just swam off into all the reeds. And if you're thinking that's not exactly exciting, I bet you live in Florida or Louisiana, where crocs are 2 a penny. I live in Bristol, a city in the west of England. And just to be clear, we don't have crocodiles, alligators, or any type of lizard indigenous to Britain. There is no way there should have been a croc anywhere, except at the zoo. If you were to Google British cryptids, and especially in relation to the Cannock chase, no doubt, one of the first things that would come up would be the black-eyed kids. Everybody seems to have a story about them, but not me. To be honest, I wish I'd seen a couple of spooky kids, because the thing that I had an encounter with is way more terrifying. The ironic thing is, I was parked up there with a mate in order to try and see those bloody kids. Not that really believed in it. It all seemed like a load of old rubbish. But we were hoping to record something for a YouTube channel we had just started. Basically, anything we could persuade viewers with some sort of spooky experience was just what we needed. The reports we'd heard about said the kids were meant to prey on people in cars who were parked late at night and on their own. They'd come up to the window, knock or just stare in, and ask for food or money. Sounded like some sort of setup to me, like they were part of some robbery sting. But hey, we had the cameras ready and were busy having fun vlogging about it. We wanted this to be epic, to stand a chance. We knew, of course, that the chances of even seeing another person out there were remotely slim. It was getting dark, but not pitch black yet. There were some security lights on in the car park, but still, most of the location was in shadow. Unsurprisingly, we were the only car left. We sat there for a couple of hours, messing about, doing live streams, which were getting plenty of views. But absolutely nothing happened that we could have pretend had worried us. And just before midnight, we were about to pack it when Josh, the mate I was filming with, said he had heard something. I thought he was mucking about, and I even joked about it being a full moon. Must be a werewolf. Then I heard something too. Although I was still sure we had just worked ourselves up. There couldn't actually be anything out there. But we both distinctly heard what sounded like something tearing through the woods. And then, the stomach-churning sound of a howl. At this point, I was in two minds. I did not believe in any of this stuff. It was more likely either a dog that had gotten lost from its owner and was now hungry, or maybe somebody who had been viewing our lives was messing with us. Maybe another one of our owner or mates was pranking us. But that thing that came racing out of the trees, that wasn't a dog. It wasn't one of our mates, neither, unless they had contacts with Hollywood special effects, because it was well too real to be looking fake. I swear to you, on me mum's life, we was looking at an actual, bona fide werewolf. It was flipping massive, way bigger than either of us, and we ain't small lads. I reckon about 7 feet, at least. It was built like a brick house, too. Obviously, covered in black hair, glowing yellow eyes. Not that we even had wolves in Britain, but we knew this weren't no animal, 'cause it was standing up too, like a bloke. I had my window slightly cranked, and we were hit by the most rank stench, like a rotting corpse, and the boys' bogs at school. We just sat there, both bricking it, too stunned to even move. It turned, stared right at us, and that was when my senses kicked in, and I quickly turned the key to start the engine, rammed my foot down, shoved it in gear and floored it. I don't know how I did not lose control. God knows what speed I was doing, but I didn't stop till I was parked at my mom's house again. And you know what the ironic thing was? We was too scared to film it. It would have been YouTube gold, no matter how traumatic it was for both of us. My Nan lives near Falmouth, and she used to tell us this story when we were kids about a red-eyed owl man that would sometimes be seen down there. She said that when she was a teenager, she'd been taking the family dog for a walk in the woods behind the cottages where she lived. It wasn't far from the local church and graveyard, and was something she always looked forward to, as she loved to draw, and her sketches of the church were a favorite amongst the locals. Anyway, this particular evening, as she was strolling through the trees, she could hear something flapping and making a loud squawking sound. She looked up and saw that the usual birds, who would be settling down in the trees by then, were all chattering and flying away quickly, as if something was up there with them. A huge shadow loomed over her from one of the big oak trees, and then she said she saw him, the hissing winged monster, the red-eyed owl man. Nan described the creature as being human-sized, but covered in feathers, and with the very distinctive head of an owl. She said it even had the way of moving its head, like that of a particular bird, where it looks as if the whole neck can spin around, so it can face backwards. It had a very sharp-looking curved beak, small but glowing red eyes, which she said reminded her of the devil himself, and clawed pincer talons, which it was using to grip onto one of the most top branches. It also had huge wings, which she supposed it would have needed, since the body looked to be the size and weight of an average adult male. Nan was frightened, as to be expected, but she said the creature paid her no attention, didn't even look at her, because it was staring at her dog, hungrily. Thankfully for her and the dog, it was still on the lead, and they ran as fast as they could throughout the trees. The owlman didn't seem to want to give chase. She said she dared to turn around just once to look back, and it was still in the tree, wings flapping, but not moving off the branch, still staring in her direction. They found a new place to walk after that, and she said it was years before she was ever brave enough to go back into those same woods again.